What's going on, YouTube? This your melanated. I ain't even got time to do an introduction. I'm gonna just go at these niggas' heads. I'm about to knock these niggas' heads off right quick. I got 30 minutes to do it. A wealth of information. You know how we rock FOF squad. Now let's get into it. One of the things that really upset me, it's one thing I think because it's natural for people to, want to push their, it's natural for people to push an agenda. It just is. But the thing is that it's another thing for someone to ridicule you, chastise you, and to try to make you feel small and marginalize your intelligence because you don't agree with them. And that's what you see from a lot of these clown ass niggas. Oh, my PL, black people don't know nothing about politics. We got to stop voting according to emotion and blah, blah, blah. And we got to understand that, Trump would have been the better in office. I know it's the lesser of two evils sort of philosophy, but yeah, we got to do what we got to do. And we got to, I mean, shut up. Shut the hell up. Because if you know anything about politics, anybody will tell you who knows anything about politics, the power rests at the local and state level. It doesn't come from the top. That's how you know somebody already trying to trick you. Now, when it's time to elect your governor, where these niggas at? Where the stars? Where the athletes? Where the political pundits? Where the political experts? It won't be seen. And see, as you notice in the 2020 pandemic so far, who did Trump have problems with? The governors. Because the governors have the power because your state has its own constitution and it has its own sovereignty. You notice that in 2006, during what happened in Hurricane Katrina, was that when Bush wanted FEMA to come in and help, what did Bush say? Give us your sovereignty. We'll help. You see, this is what you fail to realize. The problems in Michigan are not the problems in California. The problems in California are not the problems in Texas, obviously. And even speaking of that, when people wanted Biden to go ahead and do something, what did Biden ass have to go and do? He had to get on the phone with the governor of Texas. That's why we said less than 10% of people get involved in local and state elections, yet almost more than half, and especially since we broke records during this last presidential election, they get involved, right? In large numbers, but then yet when it's time to vote in the people who affect you, those county prosecutors, the Secretary of State, all of these individuals with an extreme amount of power, the governor, the lieutenant governor, you don't elect judges. You see the signs in people's yards. You just drive by, you ignore it because ain't no promotion. This shows you, one, how powerful the media is. You act like they ain't got no power over you, but yet you don't even get involved in all the areas that matter. If you were to play the game. So this dumbass nigga was Trump is, he's trying to expose pedophilia. Is he? Is he? You talking about the same man who ran the Miss America pageant and the Miss America teen pageant? The same man who would walk in those dressing rooms unannounced? Mr. Grab him by the pussy? Him? Who was with Jeffrey Epstein? I'm telling you, watch how something gonna come up. Because it's a game that they play. Even when he, in 2020, I think that, alternative therapies and hydroxychloroquine, I think that we just entertain other options. The coronavirus is a hoax, all that. That's what he was saying. That's what Trump was saying. That's not what I was saying. That's what Trump said. Okay? And then you fast forward about 10 months. Oh, yeah, we're working on it. We got a vaccine and Operation Warp Speed. I'll even deploy the military if need be. Come on, man. Come on, man. Really? Really? Even the fact that we voting between two 80,000-year-old artifacts. These niggas they came out of the Jurassic period. Old as fuck. We can't even pull from the intellectual reservoir we have right here in this country. We can't do that. You see what I'm saying? And then so subliminally what I also have to do is I have to act like I have to ignore everything that he's doing. I have to ignore his foreign policies. His actions toward other people who look like me all across the globe. I have to ignore all of that and then simply just look at him through the domestic lens, which is inadequate. That myopic view does you a huge disservice, right? And even then I can name some things that he's done, which, none of us agree with. Even though, you get a couple of crumbs here and there, you're supposed to be satisfied, and most of us are. But then, what he did to our brothers and sisters over there in Ethiopia with the completion of that dam, with them trying to complete, they raised their own money. Yet he was trying to incite, Egypt, and he was also telling them that he vehemently opposed the construction and the completion of that dam, which would bring, a ton of resources to those people over in that area, right? And like I said, he was trying to incite Egypt to bomb it. And said it should be bombed. You go over to Cuba. He still considers Cuba as a rogue nation. Our people over in Cuba. You see, along with what? Libya, Iran, Iraq, and North Korea. And see, the long-standing view that, comes from that is centered around two European powers, the United States and Russia. See, look even how they articulated in history. The Cuban Missile Crisis. That was the Russian missile crisis. Those was Russia's missiles. Cuba ain't had no damn missiles. And the United States had their missiles in Turkey. And so they had this standoff. Okay, and we also know that obviously the Soviet Union was funding Cuba at the time too. So check this is deep. And then you can also go to North Korea. Let's isolate some of those rogue nations that they talk about right quick, just real quick. And so with North Korea, we know that the Korean Peninsula, they say was in a civil war, and shortly after World War II, the Soviet Union and the United States step in. The United States sets up and creates the South. But mind you, before they create the Koreas, they agree on it first. In the back room, the Soviets and the United States. And then they go about creating the Koreas. So what do you have? You have South Korea, or the Republic of Korea, being created by the United States. And then you have North Korea, which was called the People's Democratic Republic of Korea. That was created by the Soviet Union. They created the Koreas. They create their own boogeymen. So this is the deep question I'm going to ask you. They created the motherfuckers. How in the hell is the United States cool with Russia, which is a remnant of the Soviet Union? How is you cool with Russia now, but you're not cool with Cuba or North Korea? They were financed by Russia. The whole point of you not liking them was because they were being backed by Russia. But you like Russia. Oh, we don't like Russia too much. But you still recognize them as a world power. Trump was Trump's wife. Come on, man, stop it. Not to mention, after World War II, when Europe was decimated, the Marshall Plan had allocated billions of dollars to rebuild Europe. As a matter of fact, the United States asked the Soviet Union, you want some of this money? They was like, nah, we don't want it. But they enemies, though. You better wake your ass up. And what's one of the other arguments that you hear from that nigga who's like, oh, well, Biden is for China. What? This is how I'm gonna show you I'm gonna destroy these niggas. This pseudo clown ass nigga don't know nothing about. See, I'm way deep. I'm deep down the rabbit hole. Only reason I knew that nigga was alive is because I heard his clown shoes clicking and clacking up on the surface. Oh yeah, with China. He's with China. Oh, okay, let's give you a little history. We don't even gotta go back that far. Let's go back to the Opium Wars of 1839 to 1860. Okay, the first Opium Wars from 1839 to 1842. That was when Britain just went to war with China alone. Okay, and then you have the second Opium War, which was from 1856 to 1860. Okay, by this time they have other European powers coming along with them in the war, specifically France, because then they had took over and subdued Napoleon in the Battle of Waterloo in 1815. So here comes France piggybacking along, because what's the whole thing? They want to sell the Chinaman opium. What you have to understand, before it was the People's Republic of China, it was the Qing Dynasty, and the Qing Dynasty didn't want the so-called European selling him opium, destabilizing his economy, his people, leaving them more susceptible to the disease, etc. So what did they do? They fought wars. The so-called Europeans said, no, you're going to let me sell you this opium. Okay? And then after winning the war, what happened? They took over, they forced the so-called Chinaman to open up his ports. And then they were leasing land. They're already there controlling, so leasing just made it sound, you know how they articulate it. It's like, the so-called Dr. Martin Luther King talked about, that their evil is couched in their language. Okay? So what, they leased the lands, and do you know in 1898, on paper, they leased Hong Kong from China for 99 years. They just gave Hong Kong back to China in 1997. Did you know that? Of course you niggas didn't know that, because you following pseudo-ass niggas. This so-called Blanco done leased this country for 400 years from the natives. How much power and influence does he got over here? That's what you need to understand. It's all a game. So when Biden goes over to China, they not coming as guests, they coming as rulers. That's familiar territory to them. But see, you didn't know that. You didn't know that they was battling them over there. Matter of fact, you can even go to what's called the Boxers' Rebellion of 1900. Okay? Japan, Germany, the United States, Russia, all of them came over there and fought the Chinaman. It was called the Boxers' Rebellion because the Chinese was tired of Western influence over there. But you don't know your history. You have to know world history to know your history. That's why I'm telling you, I'm like, I challenge anybody to, you know, at any level of education, whether you're talking about grade school, middle school, and you're talking about even at the collegiate level, name me one book issued to you where you study it from cover to cover. They compartmentalize information. They give you chapters, and then you walk out with little bitty pieces of information and think you intelligent? Man, like I said, bro, you listening to pseudo-ass niggas. Pseudo-ass niggas who should understand by now that the whole world is a stage. But they don't. They're ignorant. And telling you ignorant of politics. No, nigga, you're ignorant of politics. Woefully ignorant. And then even if you isolate the country that was hospitable to Cuba in their time of desperation, which was Venezuela, and we know that Hugo Chavez had attained power in around 1999 because, you know, the people were disgruntled, obviously, upset. You know, inflation rates in terms of the currency was at 30%. Political corruption. He vowed to change up the Constitution, rewrite it, and also to get rid of corruption within the political framework. And he was successful at doing so in terms of rewriting that Constitution, and he got a lot of support from the people. He developed a party over the 13 years that he was doing a lot of his work. We already know that there was work done before then, but from what was on paper, right? And his party was called the, I believe it was the Partido Socialista Unido de Venezuela, all right, which was the United Party of Socialism of Venezuela. Okay, gained a lot of steam. He did that. He nationalized industries, the petroleum industry, the telecommunications industry, the cement industry. He was giving cut rate deals to people like Cuba for petroleum and stuff like that. You see, and a wealth of other things that he was doing. Obviously upsetting the United States and Western powers because of doing stuff like this, right? Because we know that Venezuela has the #1 single oil deposit in the world. But yet, let's show you the state of Venezuela. Like I said, pay attention to what's going on because soon it will be at your doorstep. 1976 Copyright Act, Section 107, purposes of commentary, criticism, and, you know, education, scholarship, and, you know, with me, overall, just waking your ass up. This is what, you know, like I said before, we have to pay close attention to the people that they put, because I don't know if these niggas is getting paid. I don't know what's going on. But all I know is it ain't right. That's all I know. It ain't right. And I'm definitely not gonna let nobody clown my people. It's not about to happen. I don't even care if they look like us. Because I'm gonna tell you something. This is the thing that I'm gonna have to say. Like, before it's all over with, and when I get done with all of this information, what you're going to realize is that this is the plot twist. The plot twist is this. If you ever get to go see The Wizard of Oz, and you ever get to pull back that curtain, brothers and sisters, melanated gods and goddesses, it ain't gonna be nobody who look like a Blanco. It's gonna be somebody who looks just like you. All right. Let's get it. De la puerta de la cárcel para adentro, tú estás en otro estado. Un rango de virtud de maldad, o sea.
The inmates have overtaken many prisons in Venezuela. They're armed with heavy weapons and grenades.
Sorry, people.
The prisons are governed by criminal gangs led by a pran, or kingpin, who strictly enforces the thug code by which all prisoners must abide, or they will be shot in various body parts. It's too dangerous for Venezuelan troops to enter, so they patrol the perimeter and train their rifles on any inmate who tries to leave. The prisoners have formed functional, independent societies with open-air bazaars offering everything from Coca-Cola to cocaine. Several days a week, they welcome their girlfriends, wives, children, and extended families for visits, birthday parties, and even festivals. La Causa, a new documentary from 29-year-old filmmaker Andres Figueiredo Thompson, is a raw look at life inside what at the time of filming was the country's largest prison. The film explores the structure of its self-organized society, where dissenters and those deemed social radicals were treated harshly, and LGBT inmates were cast out and forced to live on the roof of a building. Figueiredo Thompson started
It said, can anybody come up there? They're like, no. And notice it. See how you got to listen to these blancos. See what he's saying? Oh, well, you see what old boy said. He said that we get these guns from the police and now we're using them against the police. And then he was talking about, oh, well, it's too dangerous to enter, so the soldiers just shoot anybody that tries to leave. Then he goes on and say, well, they invite their family in. Which one is it? If they shoot people who try to leave, don't they shoot people who try to come in? Because this is an experiment. They're allowing this to happen. He said, oh, they had everything from Coca-Cola to cocaine. Oh, really? Ain't that ironic considering the fact that Coca-Cola used to put cocaine in its products? But see, that's a slick way of knowing that it's only when you do it, it's wrong. Only when you do it. You see what I'm saying? And see, like I said before, let's go over it again because, I mentioned this in one of them other videos. And I told you before, like what? All this has already taken place. In the early 1900s, what? You had the 1918, they said you had the Spanish flu. And then, of course, with the 1914 Harrison Narcotics Act, all drugs you had access to. You can go to your local pharmacist, get cocaine, get heroin, all of that. All drugs were legal. Marijuana was legal. Everything that's going on right now was going on, honey. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. But these dumbass niggas running around helping you to believe that this is unprecedented. And that's what Venezuela looks like right now. All that oil, that's what they look like right now. And think about it. The country only wants, police with guns. But yet, who had guns? Prisoners. Laws don't matter. Like I told you before, if it was really about guns, why are they outlawing body armor? In New York, I think they just outlaw vests. Why? If somebody shoots you, look how dumb people are. If this how I let you know how people, you will see if somebody's one-sided or not. Because when people really go to war, you think they go to war without body armor? In a state that, in a country that has more guns than people, how you ain't got no body armor? And then that just goes to show you they just don't want you to protect yourself because this is the insult to injury. The only body armor that's available for civilians is level 3 body armor. That's for like 9s, 45s, 40 cals. That's not rifle rounds. Who uses rifle rounds? The military. So when you take away my ability to protect the little that I have access to, what are you saying to me? Like I said, because y'all listen to pseudo-ass niggas who know nothing about what they talking about. You see what I'm saying? Because what you have to understand when you take a look at, a lot of the things that I say, some people, they be like, oh, well, when, we were over there, we ruled and all of this different stuff. I said, I don't really, because I've had people put those comments in. Every time I talk about Europe, remember what I say, I don't have to backtrack. What have I said this whole time? Because I've been trying to give it little by little. I always say so-called Europeans or the so-called Greeks. You go back to my videos. I've never said who they were. I let you know what their energy, where their energy comes from, but I never said who they were, right? Because we already know if they couldn't read and we're the ones that brought language to them, we know that whoever it is that's pulling the strings is somebody that looks just like you. Okay? And so we know that the Moors ruled Spain. Okay? And let's back up a little bit because there was just more than those areas, right? We know that there was the Barbary Coast or Northwest Africa. That's Algeria, that's Libya, that's Mauritania, that's Morocco, that's Tunisia. All right? They were in those areas. And because Moors is an exonym, it's an outside name, that was used by so-called, that's what they say. But it not only was there to define who Muslims were, but people with dark skin. So it just, you got to relax. A lot of people are like, oh, the Moors, they take offense. Just like every Christian can't defend every Christian and every Muslim can't defend every Muslim because everybody ain't about living by the faith. So when we talk about this is how you get clarity. Let's be able to talk about it without people becoming offended. So the Moors ruled Spain. Let's go back. Like we said, they were in the Barbary Coast. We also know that they were where? They were in Iberian Peninsula, which is Spain and Portugal. Okay, we already know that. They were in southern France. All right, they were in the island of Gibraltar. Is the Rock of Gibraltar, which is famous for. Okay, they were in Sicily and Malta. Those are islands in the Mediterranean. Matter of fact, Sicily is the largest island in the Mediterranean. This is where black people were. This is why you hear all those jokes about Italians, how they got niggas in their blood. We know this. Okay, so we also know in the Middle Ages, when the kings and queens of the so-called Europeans had to, attain power, they couldn't read, they couldn't write. And then their people the remnants of them couldn't read and write. And mind you, they're not reproducing like black people reproduce because they can't reproduce like that. That's why they were in tribes. Okay? Put this in the proper context. And so if they were to rebel, who had to finance them? The Moors. They brought these beings over to other places and used them as weapons. Because you know, if you can't read and write, you can't do math. And if you can't do math, you can't build no damn boat. And look at the Europeans' history. They would die on the way over there. In so-called Christopher Columbus' 4 voyages, he crashed 9 ships. And then this is how I tell you how these niggas, we're going to get into that. We're going to talk about the Taínos. Now, we're going to show you how these individuals, the so-called, like even Christopher Columbus, I'm going to show you how surface level niggas is. Because mind you, like I said, I heard that nigga clown boots clicking and clacking up on the surface. And so when you realize that these niggas stay on the surface, just like this is a simple argument. People are like, oh, Christopher Columbus didn't discover America. Right? Okay. We don't even know if Christopher Columbus even existed. Let's pull up the receipts right quick, man. And I'm gonna show you why. I'm gonna just play this for you right quick. Because no, first of all, I tell you, let me preface that because I don't want you to get to listen. This photo that you're about to see, the portrait that you're about to see, commit it to memory. Because I'm gonna come back to that. That's why I'm also showing this to you. But I'm also showing you a little snippet about the Taínos, okay? Let's get into it.
In 1493, Christopher Columbus sailed the Atlantic Ocean and discovered Puerto Rico during his second voyage. The Spaniards quickly conquered the area for economic and religious reasons. They were interested in the island because of its strategic geographic location. In 1508, colonization began under Juan Ponce de León. At the beginning, the Taínos held a relatively positive relationship with the Spaniards. These interactions were mainly between Agüeybaná I, a powerful Taíno chief, and Ponce de León, who became the first governor of the island. However, after Agüeybaná I's death, the relationship between the Spanish and Taínos started to deteriorate. What began as a friendly encounter between the two parties soon turned into a discordant relationship when the Taínos' way of life was threatened by the Spanish.
Oh, pause!
Therefore,
you see that dog? Okay, and then remember I pointed to, what did I point to? I pointed to the portrait of Christopher Columbus. Now, the individual responsible for that painting was a guy by the name of Sebastiano del Piombo. Okay, he painted that portrait in 1519. And this is the thing, that's posthumously. That was after he was dead. So you telling me some guy who sailed 4 ships, went on 4 voyages, crashed 9 ships, worked for kings and queens, ain't no paintings of this motherfucker? CC 33, Christopher Columbus, first 6 letters of his first name, Christ. Okay, am I reaching? No, because then you go to the age of new discovery, right? 15th century, right? And then what was the first land or first city discovered by the so-called Christopher Columbus? La Navidad. La Navidad means nativity or Christmas. So even when these individuals try to get you to believe, oh, District of Columbia was after, the goddess Columbia. No, most people say it's after Columbus, and they're right. Why? Because we already know that Columbus is symbolic of Christ. Okay, and also from the fact that DC is surrounded by Virginia and Maryland. Maryland, Virginia, Virgin Mary, Christ. I'm killing you niggas. Okay, so that ends that argument in terms of that. So, when we have to understand that these people, and the Taínos they were in the Dominican Republic, they were in Haiti, they were in Jamaica, and all those lands, the Lesser Antilles, that's where those people were. And that's who, were decimated. And we even know that Bartolomé de la Casa wrote about it in his book in 1552, The Destruction of the Indies, and he said 8 million inhabitants. Now, pause. One thing that you have to understand is you getting so caught up because you see the Blanco with his weapons now. You think those was the weapons he was using. No, this motherfucker didn't have no weapons. His biggest weapon was disease at the time. How do we know that? Because if you go back, let's take a look at the movie Glory. Remember Glory? Remember when my man, the Negro and stuff, had got his gun, and Negroes just had got that musket and stuff, and he used to squirrel hunt, and he was doing his thing, but he was taking his time. And remember the commanding officer came over to him and was like, okay, but can you do that under duress? You know what I'm saying? Firing, you know what I'm saying? And then what happened was, he said, train these soldiers, train them right, because even the most advanced soldier during them times with the muskets could only load, 3 times in a minute. 3 times in a minute. And before the musket, you had weapons like the flintlock, the flintlock and the matchlock. Okay, the flintlock was like a mechanism. It all could be articulated as a mechanism that helps to eject a projectile. But the matchlock was what, like, during Christopher Columbus age, what they had. And it was literally like a hand cannon. And you remember them cartoons where, you got a wick coming out, and you light it. And so even oftentimes what would happen is you would have one soldier that would light the wick and because you have to concentrate. And another soldier would grab it once it's lit and then aim it. You ain't taking over 8 millions of people with them whack-ass type of weapons. You needed disease. Hence, you seen who was sicking who on what? That dog. Now, think about this. If the European put it in the proper context, he don't bathe, he's sick, he's carrying disease, and if he's sick and he don't bathe, imagine what they dogs look like. And we know that these dogs and these bats are vector species, and they can hold the rabies. That's how 8 million people died in the blink of an eye. They were saying, Bartolome de la Casa, he's exaggerating. It wasn't 8 million. No, it was millions. Because if you look at the Europeans' history, there are 6 iconic dates or 6 iconic events in terms of plagues. You have the plague of Athens. You have the Antonine plague. You have the plague of Cyprian. You have the plague of Justinian. You have the Roman plague. And then you have the Black Death in those orders. And we're going to read from a philosopher, Galen, when he had talked about the behavior from the people of those plagues. Okay? All right? But first, what we're going to do, because like I said, I got kill time. This is what I'm trying to do. We're going to get off into the finale of the end game in the next segment and stuff. But I had to kill this nigga right quick and show you that this nigga's dumb as a box of rocks. And what he's relying on is your ignorance in order to continue to be in the position that he's in. The nigga is dumb. He's just one of them smart dumb niggas. All right. Now, this is what I want to show you a picture of. Because I'm not only here just to do this, I'm here to even change up. I'm just trying to fuck up Black History Month. You see what I'm saying? Because you niggas are stupid. Now, first off, this is why I understand. I know for a fact, because most people deal with pseudo-ass niggas, I know when you imagine slavery, you think of slavery like all of the United States, like how they are now, when most of them were territories. See, I told you the difference, and I'm finna show you now. Now, I'm finna show you something. This is called... That is the map. That is the map of the colonies in 1763. That's the 1763. I think it's even later than that, but that's what's called this line right here going up. That's called the Proclamation Line. The Proclamation Line of 1763. Now, King George said those Blancos couldn't go past that Proclamation Line. Now, this part right here is Indian territory. That's Indian territory. This part right here, this is where the French and the Indians control. This eventually ends up becoming Louisiana. This is Louisiana. This is what was called the Louisiana Purchase, because Napoleon sold it in 1803, obviously to pay to, the war against Britain, because he also had a colony in Haiti. The colony of Haiti that was in disarray, right? Because you had a war that was going on, and everybody talk about in Haiti, revolution in 1803. No, it was a 13-year war. It was a 13-year journey, 1791 to 1804. Okay, so the fact of the matter is that Napoleon ends up selling this to the United States, and they didn't even want it at first. They just wanted some ports in the actual state of Louisiana and all that different stuff. They didn't want all this land. And this is controlled by the Indians. So think about this. This is what we're talking about. This is why I told you before. White folks don't know their own history. So when you got a nigga who thinking that he intelligent marching behind Blancos who don't even know their own history, you know this nigga is lost. Okay, so this is the colonies. And then by 1791, remind you, the first consensus is taken because 1791 was when the Bill of Rights was ratified. That's the first consensus that was taken. And there was only 5 cities that had more than 10,000 people. New York was top with around 33,000 people. And so, like Philadelphia, Boston, Charleston, those were the only other cities that had a little over 10,000 people. Overwhelmingly rural. This was the United States at the time. Now, mind you, by 1793, the so-called Eli Whitney, what does he do? He invents the cotton gin, they say, right? We know it wasn't him. But then at this time, what you have to understand is that on the shores, on the coast, they actually picked what was called long staple cotton, okay? That wasn't the most preferred. The most preferred type of cotton was short staple cotton, but it was grown in the interior. But the problem, the reason why short staple cotton wasn't profitable was because the seeds that were in the fiber. So the cotton gin was created to take the seeds out of the fiber. And then by 1801, that's when cotton production picked up into the millions. Okay? And then, shortly after that, you have to understand, in 1817, you have what was birthed as the American Colonization Society. Why is this important? Because the American Colonization Society by 1817 is trying to send Negroes or the mulattoes that had come about through amalgamation, through mixing with the indigenous people. All right, they were sending them back to Africa to colonize them and to spread Christianity. And so by 1822, they start this voyage off. And by 1847, you have the colony of Liberia, which is backed by the United States. So they're sending Negroes back to Africa to proselytize Africans into Christianity around that time. And remind you, the Civil War is in 1860. So when was slavery? I'm kicking you niggas' ass. Next segment, FOF Squad.